So let's start, and I've got the first ideal question for you, I guess. But before I do, I must say thanks to Z for sorting this out. This is an alumni catch-up, and I think it's going to be a really interesting one. We're going to grill Ricardo on his, I think it's been 10 years, is that right?
Maybe 11 or 12, yes. It was a long time ago.
So you've got lots of secrets to tell us about the industry and about how to get in and how to succeed. That'll be great. But why don't we start off by just asking you, tell us about what you're doing right now. What's the job, or what are you involved with at the moment?
Well, I'm doing a couple of things at the moment. So I still teach at university here. I'm still a student. I'm doing a PhD in visual effects. I'm also connected to the industry. So sometimes I update my CV with new projects. And I'm also a freelance for Foundry. So when Foundry needs me, I go to any country. A couple of months I went to Russia to demonstrate the new Nuke 12, the new features. Wow. I've been in Egypt. A couple of countries when Foundry needs, they invite me to go, and it's a pleasure for me.
Great. And I guess this wasn't a question I was going to ask you, but I will now. Is the sort of world of the VFX artist one still of, being able to travel internationally? Is that something that really still happens? And if you're looking to go into VFX, does it help to have that kind of sense of, wanderlust, the fact that you want to travel around?
Well, it depends from you. You have everything in London. So to be more precise, I would say UK, but I would love to. But to be honest, it's London, because the biggest industry is in London. You have all the companies. Of course, sometimes you have the same company in other countries, and different opportunities to grow as artists make you fly to other countries. That's what happened with me. So I lived in London for 11 years, and then I moved to Canada to work at MPC. Then I worked also in Germany at Trickster. So new opportunities, and also when you grow as a professional, so you become junior, then mid, and you need to jump for other company to get a new opportunity, and this will make us travel a lot. Of course, you can do everything in UK, but sometimes good opportunities appear to go to other countries. That's what I do, and many other artists do. And I already met a lot of escapees in UK, but also in Canada, which was amazing for me.
Yeah, escapees are everywhere. And for those of you who don't know, escapees is our term for people who've been to escape on one of our courses, and they've now escaped. So yeah, that's great. So I want to ask you now to go back from what you do now all the other way to, from what I understand, you'd done a master's in architecture. Yes. And you decided to come to Escape. You'd looked at what we had to offer back in the day, and I think it was the compositing 18-week course. Was that right?
Yes, correct. So I finished my master in architecture. I was doing really nice 3D renders, but in the end was missing the magic, the post-production. In one of the first trip that I did to London, one of the Portuguese friends we met, we have a coffee, and he told me that a famous Portuguese was teaching at Escape Studios and was the best school to learn post-production. So I got curious, and to be honest, the next thing I did was to go to Escape Studios. The first thing that I realized was the conditions of the building were amazing. I never saw a building like that. It was simply divine. And then the way I was received in that time was Flora, and we talk about my needs. In that time, I want to start learning post-production. I was kind of thinking in Photoshop, but then Flora said, come on, this Photoshop is just for one frame. Here we talk about a lot of frames. So we will learn Nuke, and you will be a new compositor. So after this conversation, I just talked with my family. I was finishing my master, and my parents agree. So I moved to from Portugal to London, and I start a new family. So all the friends that I met in Escape will become my family, because I was alone there, and was a big jump from Portugal to London.
Great, and I think that sort of, you know, what you talked about there about sort of like a family atmosphere at Escape. You know, we're still relatively small compared with lots of giant universities, and it's a good kind of community to be that small, and everybody knows everybody else, etc. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, this time of year is the time when a lot of students, especially undergraduates, finish their studies. Maybe a bit like you after you finish your compositing course, but you know, they're looking around, and the sort of now, of course, with the sort of the situation at the moment with COVID, etc. You know, the kind of work that's out there is very different from usual. What tips would you give for those students who've just, you know, been sort of working, slaving away at their final pieces of work? They've now, you know, finished, and they're looking around, going, "What should I do next?" What would be your advice to them?
Well, we know this COVID problem is something that affects a lot the industry, but companies still open and work needs to be done. So we know that some companies, they reduce the salary, some fire some artists, but in the end, the industry keep rolling and jobs needs to be done. So the students that finish Escape, they will keep send show reels to these companies. Also, one of the things that I was a privilege was that this connection that Escape Studios have with the companies, this bridge that company that Escape Studios help the students, and I think we shouldn't quit in terms of, as a students, shouldn't quit to send their CVs, not just for UK, but to other countries, because junior work needs to be done as a roto prep, compositing. When I talk compositing, I talk green screen or blue screen and add CG elements. So a couple of work needs to be done. And to be honest, this COVID problem will affect the industry for a more maybe 1 month or two, because I'm pretty sure that Netflix, HBO, and other companies will start shooting again, and maybe in November a lot of work will become. So my advice to the students is don't get panic with this COVID problem, because soon industry will start launching again new jobs, and all the artists will start again get inside the industry.
And yeah, and it's very easy once you've sort of left a course, I guess, to sort of you know, within a week start worrying that you're never going to sort of find work, etc. As things change. Do you have any particular? Was there any sort of tactic that you used after you'd left your course, or did you just step into something? How did you sort of make that bridge from being at Escape into the real world?
Well, I have a fantastic, well, at some point it's not fantastic, but I have a good experience that make me a little bit strong. So first interview I had was from Escape, and was at the company, famous company Molnar, in the center of London. Yeah. And I went to the interview. We were 3 professionals sitting in a sofa, and I asked the guy on the reception, so when we go to be called, this will be 1 by 1, right? And he said, no, we'll be 3 at the same time, and the first that will finish the shot will become with the job. So we were 3 escapees, but one was a mid composer, already had a little bit more experience. So we went to the computers, and of course the guy was a mid, he had a little bit more experience, he got the job. But this made me realize that even with the school, I should keep practicing a little bit more, and don't get disappointed, because if I don't get the job at first, that's the tip I want to give to the students. Never quit, since just because we don't receive a green light from a company. We know in the market exist a lot of students, and everyone wants to work on the biggest companies and everywhere, but you should remember that you are coming from Escape Studios. Escape Studios always give priority in the market because it's a reference for the companies around the world. So don't get disappointed. The other thing that I do before my interviews is to study the company. I'm pretty sure that I should talk a little bit of the work they've been done, the projects they've done, some special technique when on a movie that I saw that they work that you like. You can also comment with them. I love this technique that you applied on this specific shot. So you have to show some enthusiastic for their work, because otherwise you are just begging them for work, and at some point you don't get the connection between recruitment or supervisor and students. So you need to be prepared before you go for an interview, and at least know the history, the owners of the company, when they start, what kind of work they are doing. All this history you should know.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because it is a people industry after all, and people want to make those connections, and the connections you make, you know, one day maybe sort of only come to fruition in sort of like a few years' time. So I think that's a really good point. Ricardo, I should point out, you and I have got to both be on our best behaviour, because I saw Hugo Guerra's here on the line. So let's just try and make out that we are intelligent people, just for him. But I was going to ask you a question. Hi, Hugo. I was going to ask you a question about your kind of track record, if you like, because when you left, did you kind of have a plan? Did you have a kind of 3-year plan, or did things just, you know, take you where you wanted to go, and you sort of meandered through? Because looking at your sort of LinkedIn profile, for instance, there's a hell of a lot of, you know, really interesting companies in there.
Yes.
So did you have a plan, or did it just sort of happen?
Well, my plan, of course, and I think the plan of any student when finish the graduation, is to start getting inside the companies. That was my plan. And I was lucky when I finished my course. Cinesite was looking for junior artists, and we were starting working on John Carter from Disney.
Yeah.
And it was amazing because in that time, I started doing rotoscope for them, and then I had the chance to do a little bit of prep, and then we learned internally how to do stereoscopy. So these kind of things, we are not expecting. When we apply for a company, we apply as a junior, and we never know what we are going to do. And on this case, Escape Studios is good because we go through all the topics inside compositing, and we practice. You guys have amazing footage. Of course, in that time that I did Escape, just a few plates, but I been on the side all the time of Escape, because I have some students from Portugal that they go for Escape. I saw that they have amazing plates for the showreel. Escape Studios keep growing and improving on the material. So I think that's when you get inside a big company, you are not expecting what you are going to do, because sometimes they need people. Just if you are in a small company, of course, you are going to do everything that they need as a roto prep and comp. If you are a big company, sometimes you are just going to focus on a rotoscope or prep the needs of the company. Of course, they have that privilege because they are a lot of employers. But my goal was to finish and, of course, get inside the industry, not come back to Portugal, because the industry is focusing in London, and I want to stay there all the time. That's what I did.
Great. And I know you worked on, I think, a couple of Oscar-winning productions for VFX Oscars, Academy Awards. I think one was Interstellar, and I think which was the other?
Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Yes.
So can you give us an idea of what that's like? I mean, when you were working on those things, did you sort of think they were sort of like maybe a cut above other stuff, or is it just totally chance?
I have to be honest. When I get inside the DNeg team and they said, okay, you are going to be part of Ex Machina, I think to myself, well, with so crazy projects here and amazing, I'm going to Ex Machina. Okay, that's fine. I will accept because I have work is work and I have to do it. So I was not expecting that Ex Machina became award winning in terms of visual effects, but that's what happened. And one of the things that I'm really honored is to start. I was already a compositor, so I have previous experience before, but one of the things that happen in big companies, they always trying to push a level down because they want to see if you are able to do the job. So in that time, I was applying for a little bit of compositing and they put me as a roto artist. And since it's DNeg, I accept because I had the chance to prove that I was able to do. And inside the company, I did Rotoscope, where they have their own software, and it's really simple. It's really similar to Silhouette. That's what they teach at Scape Studios. And then one of the tips that I also can give to the students is have a good relationship with production, because what made me jump from Rotoscope to prep was the friendship that I have with production, and to show them that I was able to do, and I want more because I was in the career of compositor and not just the roto artist. So this connection that you have is always good to have in your life in all the companies, because production will help you to grow. But I was able to do roto and then prep. And then after prep, I told them, look, you saw that I know how to do it, so please give a little bit of composting. And I started doing composting. I could say that almost in the end of the project, the company sent out artists for other projects, and just a few stayed till the end. I was one of them that stayed till the very end of the project. I'm really proud that I was able to do it. And then when Ex Machina finished, Interstellar was also finishing, but what is normal on big companies is that when you are almost in the end, you are doing the final push to finish the project, and they allocate all these teams that they have free to help finishing the project. So I was one of them that was helping Interstellar with a few prep shots. Some of them was the robot rolling on the water, and a lot of reflections from the crew were on the robots. And I was cleaning everything, so creating patch and painting and tracking everything. So I was also a privilege to work on Interstellar. And to be honest, in Interstellar, I was expecting this kind of Oscar, because the director and all the investment they did, not in Ex Machina. Ex Machina was something that nobody was expecting. But in the end, if you realize there is a lot of beauty on that project, and all the team did an amazing job in all the departments. So it's fair enough that Ex Machina won the Oscar.
Yeah, yes, indeed, and like you say, very different films, very different budgets, as has been mentioned on the chat by Hugo as well. I wanted to sort of come back to sort of practicalities, really. So going back to this idea of like alumni and people who are listening in here who have just left and are looking for their first job, maybe. Tell us how you handle interviews, because let's say you send out your CV and your reel, and they want to interview you. How does that work, and what tips might you have for that kind of first face-to-face meeting? Whether it's nowadays, of course, it's on Zoom, but or Microsoft Teams, but in your day, it was face-to-face, I guess. So give us some tips on how to handle the first interview.
Well, I could say I have a good mentor on when I start. He's online today. We already talked about him, my good friend Hugo Guerra. I learned a lot with him. So I also want to say that I went to Escape because the other Portuguese that told me the famous Portuguese was teaching Escape Studios was Hugo Guerra. So I went to Escape to have classes with him, but he was teaching the evening class and I went to full time. So in that time was Claudia, and I did the class with Claudia, and she's still at Escape Studios, which is cool to know. And Hugo, we've been talking a lot. Hugo have been doing the recommendations. So when I go to an interview, before, as I mentioned, I study the company. I study all the details they could ask me. Also, one of the most important things as an artist is to have a good network. We should have a LinkedIn with all the recruiters, all the companies. And I think this is as gold for an artist, because if you have a good networking, the process of getting inside a company, it's easier because you can contact them directly. Why I'm saying this? Because every day companies receive thousands of showreels to see. And they don't know who is good or is bad because they don't have time to check all the showreels, and also the BFX supervisors or the compositor supervisor don't have time because they have to do other tasks inside the company. So you first, you can contact them by LinkedIn saying, look, this is my showreel. I really love your company. I would love to have an opportunity to have an interview with you. And then when they call you for an interview, you can start showing the techniques that you applied on your showreel. You can talk in an enthusiastic way and not sad about your work, because that's the energy that you should apply when you are interviewed. Sometimes the company is so big that you are afraid that you are not getting the position, and you are talking by them like with head down, not looking in the eyes of the recruiter or the VFX supervisor. These things, they notice that you should have some confidence when you are talking about your work, because in the end, that's what you did. You put a lot of effort on your showreel. And that's another tip, the positive energy that you are sending and showing on your work. And I would like to describe all the techniques that I apply on the showreel, showing them that I have more problems here because on this specific area, I have this problem and this, and I fix or I solved with this solution. So I like to show them that I have knowledge to fix problems that maybe I will have when I start working with them, and I know how to solve. In the end, they want to add people that knows to solve problems and not learning inside the company. So this is something that you need to show them, that you are able to fix all the problems that they will have at the company. Of course, you are applying as a junior artist. You are not able to fix all the problems. And it's perfectly normal that when you get inside a company, you have a mentor or someone that will guide you through the problems. Some companies, I could say big companies, ILM, Double Negative, MPC, they also have webinars, or they have their own tutors giving classes. So you can grow also inside the company with their knowledge, which is really cool because they have gizmos that we don't have here out. They have a big pipeline. So first week when you get inside, just also for the students to know, normally they give you like 3-4 days to know all the pipeline of the company. You are able to explore how to submit a shot for dailies, how to render, which server you should apply, all these technical questions. You are able to spend some time when you get inside these companies. So my recommendation when someone goes for an interview is to go confident, put some positive energy, and also at some point go relax, because I know it's very stressful. At some point you really need the job because it's the first opportunity, and sometimes you go to the school because you have your dream is to be in the big company or that specific company, and this desire at some point puts you really stressful. So at some point, relax, just read 3 times before you get inside the company. Just give your best, because in the end, if you don't get the position, another thing is don't be sad, because maybe this time was not the opportunity for you, but maybe in 3 years, with more companies on your CV and more experience, you are able to get that company. And you know that also as me, that today we work at this company, next month we are in another company, and then we come back again to the same company. So BFX is like this, and the best thing is to give your best in every company you are, because you will get on the arms of the supervisors and everyone that like you as a production, and they will call you again. So that's my tip for the students that are starting applying for the companies.
Thank you. Yes, and I think it's also important to know that, you know, recruiters almost expect you to be nervous. There's nothing wrong with being nervous. They accept that. They've seen it before. You just have to find your rhythm and find your sort of space within that interview. And I think sort of I just wanted to also mention that I think Lumox on the chat said, you know, networking is half of the work, really. You know, doing that networking, being part of the industry is part of, you know, getting work. So when you sort of
I also would love to. I'm sorry. I would love to say that Lumox is an ex-KP. He graduated about like half a year or something. He was my student in Portugal, and he did a master at Scape Studios. So he is Luis Mota.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lumox. When you left, again, another question about, you know, acclimatizing to the world of work. What was the most challenging thing for you after you left? What was really difficult at first? Because, you know, let's just be honest. Moving from any kind of course where you're learning to sort of like a place where there's a bit more maybe stress about deadlines and things like that is difficult. So what was your biggest challenge when you left?
I'm sorry. When I left Escape Studios,
yeah.
Well, big challenge is always a new challenge that we don't have at the school, because the school will prepare us for the world, but at some point we have other challenge inside the companies that we are not expecting. So this challenge, and that's why I mentioned about the mentors and about the students don't get too anxious when they get inside the company, is that you will have it, because it's perfectly normal that in the industry, even me that have a couple of years of experience, I face different challenge on different shots. So if a junior that is starting it's perfectly normal that we'll get these kind of challenges when get inside a company in terms of work. And in the beginning, when I get inside Cinesites and I was working as a roto and prep artist, I was facing some kind of difficult work because there was a lot of people running and they want me to rotoscope everything. But at some point we had a lot of motion blur and I couldn't keep the shapes. So I was getting struggle with this kind of work. And a friend, this time his friend, because we did a good friendship. He was a supervisor at the moment. And he said, look, the guy is not getting fat or slim. The guy is still the same guy. So don't change the shape. Just follow the movement. And then with this technique, you can get the blur, the motion blur that you want, but don't change the shape. So these kind of things that at some point it's not that we don't learn at the school, but we are facing more different challenges at the companies, because in the school we learned a lot of these things, of course, but we always think, oh, I will not get this kind of problem when I start working, and we have. So we always have these problems when we get inside the companies, but we just have to think that all that artists that are inside these companies, they all face these problems and they solve it. So we are not different. And of course, we need to ask someone on the side how they solve, or call someone that is responsible for you and say, look, I know this is the way of doing the shot, but at some point I'm not getting this part of the detail. How can I solve this? The goal here is not struggle and not stop your work because they need your shot for that specific time. But when you get stuck, call someone and ask for help to solve your shot.
Great, thanks. So, yeah, and that's an important point about always learning and you know, ask for support in companies as well, because I think some people think they have to just sit there and suffer when in fact there's somebody next to them who can just quickly give them some advice and help, and that's, you know, it's all in the it's all designed to get the great shots out the door in the end. So it makes perfect sense. I wanted to ask you about Escape again, and you know, networking. And do you keep in touch with Escape? I know there's an alumni association, and you know, we try to keep track of people, but do you keep in touch with Escape?
Of course, you that's the kind of question that you don't need to ask. Well, Escape will be always on my heart because I changed my life because Escape gave me that opportunity. As you know, architects, we have lots of work as an architecture, but I felt at some point that my dream, and this changed when I was a student at Escape Studios. I started watching the world in a different way because I saw some colleagues that were finishing the classes and jumped to big companies. So I started thinking, well, if they have this opportunity, I will have too. So I started thinking that my life could change at some point, and it changed. If was not Escape, I was not able to give this jump for the companies and be who I am today. Well, I'm I'm nobody special. I'm just a senior composer or a composer supervisor who had the luck to be in the specific shows as Interstellar, Ex Machina, and Avengers, and other companies that I work. And what I always say to the students is, at the moment, with the technology and the school as Escape Studios, you have everything to be able and better than me. Because 11 years ago, things were different. Methods of teaching were different. And now you have everything in your fingers and you can do everything you want. Also, one of the things that I have the privilege is to say that Escape Studios is a top 10 university around the world, is one of the best. And to be honest, I've been crossing and being a speaker in all the top 10 universities around the world. And I always show that I was a Escape Studios student. And it's funny, in the end, people know, oh, I did Escape Studios too, in the year of something. So Escape have been, for me, in my heart. And to be honest, I always recommend Escape Studios to, if you want to get a good career, and to, if you want, because the problem of most of the universities and most of the schools, they can teach, but you don't have this connection to the industry, this bridge that at some point when you finish the school, you are almost jumped to a company. Because this is typical from Escape Studios. They care about in the end of the course to put in touch with these companies. Also, this connection that you bring some professionals from the companies to give 1 week, 2 weeks to the students. This is something that you don't have in other places, this connection with the industry. And of course, I'm always following Escape Studios.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and it's been great over this period of lockdown as well to see how industry has sort of supported us, and we've had so many workshops, webinars, and the VFX Festival at the moment continues. It's continuing way into next year now. So if anybody, there's a plug for us, I guess. Look at the Escape Studios VFX Festival and go. All the events are free. I was going to ask you one last question, I think, because we're running out of time, and that is with regard to selling yourself. What kind of profile do you recommend for people? Do they need to have their own blog? Do they need to be on Instagram, Twitter, etc.? Do you need, or if you're the kind of shy, retiring kind of person, do you need any of that stuff to get on in the VFX world?
Well, at some point, if you don't sell your image, the other persons on the other side don't know you, because exist so many people in this industry that if you don't show your work, if you don't sell your image, if you don't get inside the houses of the professionals with your work, and if you get shy, for sure people won't see your work. So to get a job, of course, you don't need to sell a lot your image, because at the moment we are not showing that you are the best. At some point in your career, when you want to become a senior, or you want to become a supervisor, or you want to become someone from the top, of course, this you should have a lot of information of you, so the other side knows that you already have this historical with work, and give some safety to the person that is on the other side. I always like to say that when, for example, an XKP student, when finished, if you are able to create a website and to put your work and to send the link to recruitment, is different than you send just a link of Vimeo of your work. Because if you have a website, you can put your information, you can put your history, you can put all your background that you have. And if you just send a link from Vimeo or YouTube, it's just a link that is there, and someone that is on the other side don't know nothing about you. So if you have a website, why not just send a link to the recruitment, and I'm sure they will, if they have time, they will check your background and what you did. Because most of the time you have, for example, on my side, I have a master in architecture. It's not that important for compositing, but if you have, if you are architect, of course, you deal with cameras because you like photography, you have some backgrounds, and these things are also important because you already have started training your eye with photography, and you know a little bit of lens. So all these things matter for the decision that we will take. So to answer your question, yes, if you can, please create websites, put your work, talk about you, and I'm sure the person on the other side will see a lot of more work that was expecting from the students.
Great, thanks. And I saw those on the chat there. There was Daphne was asking about how do you apply for courses at Escape. First case, Daphne, go to the Escape website, and you'll be able to contact people, advisors through that. We have undergraduate and postgraduate courses, but we also have short courses where you can taste things. And the course that Ricardo went on, which is an 18-week compositing course, there's a range there. So check out that and speak to a number of people from the Escape website. Last question now, and I've been dying to ask you this because a lot of people tend to think VFX is all about kind of guns for hire and just doing a job and then moving on to the next job. And you're doing a PhD in visual effects. So can you tell us a bit about your PhD and what it's going to be about?
Sure, it's a little bit secret, but I don't mind. But I don't mind to explain. So when teaching at university, you are able to teach if you are a senior composer or you at least you have experience of what you are doing. But at some point, if you want to be or get a higher level inside the university, they normally ask for a PhD. I could say that I'm starting, or I started a few years ago trying to develop an algorithm for green screens. Why? Because every time we pick a green screen, we have a lot of work and we spend a lot of time. Because since we want to pick the small hair detail or the edges are not correct. So Disney already developed something similar to this. When you put a green screen, he will apply keys as a soft and hard. So it's a mix of both. And they will do almost automatically the job for you. And this, if this work is something that I would love to implement on my daily basis work. And if maybe Foundry think is something good, also put inside Nuke that can share around the world. So I'm trying to create an algorithm that will do automatically the process of green screen.
Okay, of course you are a creative specialist from the Foundry. That's one of the things that you've done.
I'm a freelance. I'm not working with them. I'm freelancing for them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's fantastic. And you know, I was also it was great looking through your LinkedIn and that you've worked at Twixt, NPC, ILM, DNeg, and I love Scaredy Backed Productions as well, which is a great title for I saw you'd worked with. Because you've worked at all those places, do different sort of VFX companies have different cultures? Because we meet a lot of students who go, oh, I really want to work at Framestore, or I really want to work at DNeg. Do those places all have a different culture? And do you recommend students try different companies and see which kind of culture or workplace they like the best?
Well, in the end of the day, work is work and is the same in every company. But it's true. When you talk about culture, I would say different pipelines. Because every company have its own method of working, and every company have its own pipeline. And yes, for example, ILM have a different way of working when I was there. For example, in dailies, I submit my shots, and everyone that was working on that shot as lighting, texturing, compositing, match move. We were on the room talking about the shots. At DNeg, were a little bit different. For when I was a roto or a prep artist, they called first the roto department, and then the prep department, and then the compositing. So the different companies have different strategies, and I would say that the culture that you mentioned is this kind of way of organizing the company. I also could mention, for example, in Russia, I went with Foundry to Main Road Post. They are one of the biggest companies around the world of CG and compositing. And when I get inside the building, they have a different way of distributing the artists, so they make something different. You feel like everyone is mixed, and you don't have the comp department, you don't have the lighting department. So it's separated by groups with different kind of work. So exists this culture that you are talking about? Yes, exists.
Great, thanks for that. And I think on that note about culture and PhDs, and you know, we wish you good luck in your future endeavors. We've kind of come to the end now, and I have to sort of just say thanks to Ricardo Ferreira, who is not only a digital compositor but also a professor, for his time and advice. And also thanks to Z for allowing me to do this, because Z usually does these interviews with aplomb, but I twisted his arm and he let me do this, so thank you. Yes. And thanks to everybody behind the scenes as well. And remember, if you want to find out more about Escape, do look at the Escape Studios website, and you'll find a whole range of stuff on there. And I think sort of this interview will soon be available elsewhere as well. So I guess that's it. You know, I've never done one of these interviews before. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, sorry. If you allow me, I just want to give last words. First of all, I want to thank you, the privilege to be the first escapee in thousands of amazing escapees in the world with amazing careers. I'm honored for being the first on this webinar. I also want to thank the time you are spending with me here on the webinar, and of course to Z to set up everything. It was amazing on all the emails and all the effort that he put for this webinar. And of course, I couldn't leave last word to everyone that is here as students and professionals that spend a few minutes listening us and also share a little bit of love on the message they are dropping on the chat.
Yeah, thank you. And there's a great last word. So I'm not going to continue any further after your fantastic ending. So thanks, everybody. And we look forward to more of the same. And good luck to everybody in their future careers. And we hope you'll spend them in VFX. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.